They didn't even offer me coffee, just a severance envelope and a speech about strategic alignment. After 20 years, that was it. I stared at Brett Lawson, our COO, who delivered the news with the emotional depth of someone ordering lunch. His perfectly styled silver hair and tailored navy suit felt like a costume now, CEO cosplay. Beside him sat Tara Dunn, who I'd personally mentored for 5 years. She avoided my gaze, suddenly fascinated by her notepad. "Lucas, you've been invaluable to Westbridge and Palmer," Brett continued with practiced precision. "But as we navigate digital transformation, we need to realign our leadership approach with emerging market dynamics." Translation: You're too old, too expensive, and not trendy enough for our investor pitch decks. I'd built our client services division from 12 people to over 200. I'd secured our 3 largest accounts. I'd survived 2 recessions, a pandemic, and 4 different CEOs. Now I was being restructured because of digital transformation and youth-oriented thinking. "We've prepared a generous package." Brett slid the envelope across the glass conference table. 6 months' salary, extended benefits, and career transition services. The severance package landed with a whisper between us. I didn't touch it. "Tara will be stepping into the role of strategic director." Brett nodded toward her. "She'll be supporting new strategic initiatives and bringing fresh perspectives to our client relationships." Tara finally looked up, a practiced smile tight across her face. "I've learned so much from you, Lucas. I hope I can build on the incredible foundation you've established." Inside, something was shattering. 20 years of my life, discarded in a 15-minute meeting. The presentations I'd stayed up all night to perfect. The weekends sacrificed for emergency client requests. The family vacations interrupted by work calls I took from beach bathrooms and ski lodge corners. Outside, I remained composed, professional to the end. "I understand," I said, finally reaching for the envelope. "May I have until the end of the day to collect my things?" Brett looked relieved. He'd clearly expected tears, shouting, or bargaining. "Of course, HR will assist you with the transition." I stood up, straightened my tie, and offered my hand. "I wish you both the best of luck." Brett shook my hand firmly, already mentally moving to his next meeting. Tara's handshake was softer, uncertain. As I turned to leave, Brett called after me. "You've helped build something special here, Lucas. This is just business evolution. Nothing personal. Nothing personal. 20 years of my life. Nothing personal." I walked through the open office toward my corner space, past designers with their AirPods in and account managers huddled around screens. A few glanced up, catching something in my expression. Word would spread soon enough. My office had always been my pride. Corner views of downtown Chicago, walls lined with framed campaign awards, shelves filled with books on strategy and leadership. Now it felt like a museum exhibit of someone else's career. I didn't take much. My plants, a few books, the bottle of 18-year Macallan gifted by a grateful client, family photos. The rest, the accumulated artifacts of 2 decades, could stay. Let them become corporate archaeology. HR sent a young woman I'd never met to assist me, to ensure I didn't steal intellectual property or make a scene. She hovered apologetically by the door as I packed, occasionally offering a box or tissue. "I'm really sorry, Mr. Reeves," she said finally. "Everyone respects you so much." I nodded, not trusting my voice. Her kindness was worse than Brett's corporate detachment. By 3 o'clock, I was in an Uber heading home, 2 cardboard boxes on the seat beside me. The driver tried small talk, but I couldn't focus. Chicago's skyline blurred through the window as we moved north toward Lincoln Park. These buildings had been my backdrop for 2 decades, the stage for my professional life. Now they were just glass and steel. Our brownstone was empty when I arrived. Alice wouldn't be home from her pediatric practice until evening. The girls were both away at college, Emma at Northwestern, Lily at Michigan. I set the boxes in the entryway and stood in the quiet house. Everything looked exactly as I'd left it that morning. Alice's coffee mug in the sink, mail stacked on the counter, The throw blanket rumpled on the couch where our aging golden retriever, Charlie, had been sleeping. Familiar, unchanged, yet everything felt hollow, as if I'd stepped into a perfect replica of my life rather than the real thing. Charlie padded over, tail wagging cautiously at my unexpected return. I knelt down to scratch behind his ears. "Just you and me today, buddy." I wandered through the house, unsure what to do with this sudden unwanted freedom. In the kitchen, I opened a beer, then closed the refrigerator without taking it. Too early, too cliché, the middle-aged man drowning career disappointment in alcohol. Instead, I sat at the dining room table and opened my laptop. Force of habit. 24 new emails appeared, mostly automated notifications. Soon, my company account would be deactivated. Already, I felt like a ghost in my own professional life. Without thinking, I opened LinkedIn. The algorithm immediately showed me. Tara Dunn has a new position, Strategic Director at Westbridge and Palmer. Impressive efficiency. She'd updated her profile before I'd even left the building. There were already congratulatory comments accumulating beneath her announcement. Several from colleagues I'd hired and mentored, a few from clients. Could they replace me that easily? I whispered to the empty room. Charlie tilted his head, confused by my tone. I closed the laptop. I couldn't bear to craft the dignified, "I'm excited to announce my next chapter" post that everyone would recognize as the thin veneer over involuntary termination. The house phone rang, a landline we kept mostly for emergencies. I almost didn't answer, but some professional reflex kicked in. "Hello? Lucas? Lucas Reeves?" A woman's voice, familiar but unexpected. "Yes, this is Lucas. It's Chloe Anderson from Helix Nutrition. Do you have a moment?" Chloe Anderson, CEO of Helix Nutrition, our second largest client, a company that spent 8 figures annually with Westbridge and Palmer, most of it through campaigns I'd personally overseen. "Chloe, of course, this is a surprise. I just got off a call with Tara Dunn," she said, her voice tight with controlled anger. She informed me she'd be taking over our account effective immediately. When I asked where you were going, she gave me some corporate doublespeak about evolving team structures. I winced. "I was going to call you tomorrow, after I'd processed things. Today was unexpected. So it's true they let you go." The disbelief in her voice was oddly validating. "Strategic realignment," I said, the corporate euphemism sounding even more hollow when I spoke it. "That's absolute bullshit," Chloe said. "I've been blowing up your phone all afternoon. Didn't you see my texts?" I reached for my phone. In the chaos, I hadn't even checked my personal messages. There were 6 texts from Chloe. "Did you quit? Are you leaving W&P? Tara just called to introduce herself as our new contact. Please call me ASAP. Where did you go? If you're gone, I'm gone too." That last message hit me like a physical blow. If you're gone, I'm gone too. "I'm sorry, Chloe. It's been a day." "I can imagine." Her voice softened. "Lucas, I need to be direct. We chose Westbridge and Palmer because of you. Your understanding of our brand, your strategic thinking, your ability to navigate our internal politics. You've been our strongest advocate for 5 years." I felt a sudden warmth spread through me. Professional validation when I needed it most. "I appreciate that. But W&P has an incredible team," I said automatically, the company man until the end. "Tara is very capable. Tara just told me she wants to pivot our entire brand strategy toward influencer marketing and youth culture activation. She called our core demographic, women over 40, a transitional audience." I nearly choked. Helix's entire business model was built on premium nutritional products for women in midlife. Their customer lifetime value was exceptional precisely because they didn't chase trend-hopping younger consumers. "That doesn't align with your 5-year plan," I said carefully. "No shit." Chloe laughed bitterly. "Lucas, I'm calling to tell you 2 things. First, Helix will be terminating our contract with Westbridge and Palmer, effective immediately. I don't care about the cancellation penalties." I sat up straighter. "Chloe, that's a 7-figure decision. You should take some time to..." Already decided. Our board approved it 30 minutes ago. That's how much they value your input. She paused. The second thing is a question. What are your plans? The question caught me off guard. I hadn't had time to think beyond the next hour, let alone my career future. I honestly don't know. Today was unexpected. When you figure it out, call me. If you're starting your own consultancy, we want to be your first client. If you're joining another agency, we'll follow. If you're retiring to paint watercolors in Maine, I'll commission enough seascapes to keep you comfortable. I felt a lump forming in my throat. Why would you do that? Because you understand our company in a way no one else has. Because you've saved us from ourselves at least 3 times. Because business is ultimately about people, not buzzwords. She paused. And because loyalty should run both ways. After we hung up, I sat motionless at the dining table. A strange feeling was replacing the hollow ache in my chest, the dawning realization that perhaps I wasn't as replaceable as Brett Lawson had made me feel. Perhaps I had value beyond what Westbridge and Palmer had recognized. I was still sitting there when Alice came home, her face registering shock at finding me home early, then alarm as she read my expression. "Lucas, what happened?" "They let me go," I said simply. "Strategic realignment." Her face flushed with anger. "After 20 years? Just like that?" I nodded, suddenly exhausted. "Just like that." Alice set down her medical bag and wrapped her arms around me. "Their loss," she whispered fiercely. "Their tremendous, idiotic loss." That night, I couldn't sleep. Alice breathed softly beside me, but my mind raced with questions, replaying the day's events on endless loop. Around 2 a.m., my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "It's Natalie, your ex-assistant. Still up?" Natalie had worked with me for 3 years before moving to our creative department 6 months ago. Smart, observant, and discreet. I texted back, "Wide awake. Everything okay?" My phone rang almost immediately. "I probably shouldn't be calling," Natalie whispered. "But what they did to you was wrong, and you should know what's happening." I sat up in bed, moving carefully to not wake Alice, and stepped into the hallway. "What's going on?" "Chaos," she said. "Absolute chaos. Tara called an all-hands meeting after you left to announce the exciting changes to the leadership team. Half the client services department looked shell-shocked. That's to be expected with any leadership change, I said diplomatically. No, it's worse than that. Tara's been making calls to all your key clients, pushing this new youth acceleration strategy, but that's not the worst part. I leaned against the wall, dreading what might come next. Go on. I was assigned to take notes in the investor meeting this afternoon. Tara was there presenting her vision. She referred to your client roster as an influencer pipeline that needed to be monetized more aggressively. She specifically mentioned Helix Nutrition as ready for brand rejuvenation. My stomach tightened. The investors bought it? They seemed skeptical. One of them asked about client retention risk. Brett jumped in saying they had contingency plans for any transitional friction. She paused. Lucas, they know they might lose clients because of this move. They've calculated it's worth the risk. I thought of Chloe's call. They miscalculated. That's not all. After the meeting, I overheard Tara on the phone with someone. She was saying how excited she was to finally modernize the dinosaur strategies and move beyond the boomer marketing playbook. Each word felt like a small betrayal. I had championed Tara, mentored her, advocated for her promotions. Now she was dismantling my legacy before my office chair had cooled. Why are you telling me this, Natalie? She was quiet for a moment. Because you treated everyone with respect. Because you built something valuable. Because this feels wrong. She lowered her voice further. And because 3 other clients called after hearing about your departure, 2 are threatening to review their contracts. By morning, the professional grief had crystallized into something harder, more defined. Alice found me in the kitchen, already dressed in jeans and a sweater instead of my usual suit. You look different, she said, studying my face. I feel different, I admitted. Like I've been seeing everything through the wrong end of a telescope. My phone had been buzzing steadily since dawn. Colleagues expressing shock, industry contacts offering condolences thinly disguised as networking opportunities. I ignored most, responding only to those I considered true friends. Around noon, a call came from a number I hadn't seen in years. "Lucas Reeves," I answered, professional habits still strong. "Lucas, it's Ronald Beck." My breath caught. Ronald Beck, the founder of Westbridge and Palmer, retired for nearly 5 years. The man who had hired me, mentored me, then gradually withdrawn as venture capital diluted his ownership and influence. "Ronald, this is unexpected." "I just heard," he said, his voice carrying the gravel of his 70 years. "Brett finally did it, huh? You knew this was coming?" A heavy sigh came through the line. "I suspected Brett's been pushing to refresh the executive team since he became COO. The board gave him more authority after the last funding round. I no longer have controlling interest." "It's done now," I said, surprised at my own calm. "Company's moving in a new direction." "A direction straight into a goddamn wall," Ronald muttered. "Lucas, I didn't sign off on this. I want you to know that..." Something in his tone made me pause. "Are you calling just to clear your conscience, Ronald?" A surprised chuckle. "Still direct as ever. No, that's not why I'm calling." He paused. "I'm calling because Brett doesn't understand what he's dismantled. You weren't just a marketing director. You were the relationship backbone of the company." I thought of Chloe's call, of Natalie's late-night revelations. "I'm starting to realize that I want you to come back," Ronald said bluntly, "in an advisory capacity. Help smooth this transition. We can structure a consulting arrangement that..." "No," I interrupted, surprising myself with the firmness in my voice. "Lucas, be reasonable. The severance package is generous, but a consulting retainer would..." "It's not about money, Ronald. It's about respect, about recognition for 20 years of commitment. Business isn't personal. Lucas, you know that..." "That's where you're wrong," I said quietly. "Business is entirely personal. It's built on trust, on relationships, on human connections. The moment we pretend otherwise, we lose what matters." Ronald was silent for a long moment. "What if the board reconsiders? What if we create a new position that..." "I won't patch the cracks you refuse to see," I said. "Westbridge and Palmer has changed. Maybe I have too." After hanging up, I felt a strange lightness. For the first time since yesterday's ambush, I was making choices rather than responding to them. By evening, word had clearly spread through the industry. My phone showed 3 calls from recruiters and a LinkedIn inbox full of connection requests from people who'd never shown interest before. I ignored them all, instead focusing on drafting a carefully worded email to my closest clients, explaining my departure and thanking them for their partnership over the years. I didn't mention Westbridge and Palmer's new direction or my concerns about their accounts. That would be unprofessional. I simply closed each note with, "I look forward to seeing where our professional paths might cross again." 3 days later, I received an email from an address I didn't recognize. Abigail, Lina Hartmore Collective, COM. The subject line read, "Opportunity to discuss, confidential." Normally, I might have dismissed it as another recruitment pitch, but something about the timing and the company name caught my attention. Hartmore Collective was a rising force in the industry, an agency known for its progressive workplace culture and strategic depth, rather than flashy campaigns or celebrity connections. The email was brief and direct. "Mr. Reeves, I'm reaching out regarding a senior leadership opportunity at Hartmore Collective. Our CEO, David Chen, has followed your work for several years and would like to discuss potential synergies. Are you available for a confidential conversation this week? Regards, Abigail Lynn, Executive Recruitment Director, Hartmore Collective." I responded with equal brevity, suggesting a coffee meeting the following day at a quiet cafe in the Gold Coast neighborhood, far from Westbridge and Palmer's downtown offices. Abigail Lynn turned out to be a sharp-eyed woman in her 40s with a no-nonsense demeanor that I immediately appreciated. She arrived precisely on time, ordered an espresso, and came straight to the point. "Thank you for meeting me, Mr. Reeves. I'll be direct. David Chen asked me to find you specifically when we heard about your departure from W&P. I raised an eyebrow. News travels fast. In this industry, lightning speed, especially when it involves someone of your caliber being shown the door. She sipped her espresso. We've also heard rumblings about client unrest at W&P, particularly Helix Nutrition. I kept my expression neutral. I can't comment on my former client's business decisions. She smiled approvingly. Professional discretion. One of many reasons David is interested. He's asked me to discuss a potential role as Chief Strategy Officer at Hartmore, based in our San Francisco headquarters. San Francisco. 3,000 miles from Chicago, from our home, Alice's practice, our entire life. That would be a significant relocation, I said carefully. Abigail nodded. We understand that. The role would include relocation assistance, housing allowance for the first year, and flexibility for family considerations. She leaned forward. Mr. Reeves, Lucas, Hartmore doesn't see you as damaged goods because of what happened at W&P. They see you as unclaimed, as someone who built something valuable that others failed to recognize. The validation was a balm to my still-wounded professional pride. I appreciate the interest, I said, but I need to understand why now. Hartmore could have approached me any time in the past 5 years. Because sometimes people need to be freed from one path before they can see another, she said. And because the industry is changing, agencies like W&P that chase quarterly investor metrics at the expense of client relationships are vulnerable. Hartmore is positioning for what comes next. She slid a sleek folder across the table. These are the details of what we're proposing. Take time to review them. Discuss with your family. Then, if you're interested, David would like to meet with you personally next week. That evening, Alice and I sat at our dining room table. The Hartmore proposal opened between us. The offer was exceptional. Salary that matched my previous compensation, equity options, relocation package, and a clearly defined leadership role. San Francisco, Alice mused, tracing the embossed Hartmore logo with her fingertip. It's a beautiful city. You've built your practice here, I reminded her. Your patients depend on you. She looked up, her expression thoughtful. Lucas, I've been a pediatrician for 23 years. I could practice anywhere, or I could take a teaching position, or consult. I have options. She reached for my hand. The question is, what do you want? I stared at the proposal. I don't know if I want to start over at a new agency. Learn new politics, new personalities, new idiosyncrasies. Then don't. I looked up, confused. You don't think I should take it? I think you should do whatever feels right, not what's expected. She squeezed my hand. For 20 years, you've been the dependable one, the company man. Maybe this is your chance to redefine what comes next. The following day, I called David Chen directly, bypassing Abigail Lynn. His assistant put me through immediately. Lucas, he greeted me warmly. I've been hoping to hear from you. Have you had a chance to review our proposal? I have, I said. It's very generous, but before we go further, I'd like to propose an alternative. There was an interested pause. I'm listening. You mentioned positioning Hartmore for what comes next. I'd like to discuss something more ambitious than a CSO role. Go on. I took a deep breath. I'd like to discuss Hartmore acquiring Westbridge and Palmer. The silence on the line stretched for several seconds. That's unexpected, David finally said. W&P is valued at nearly 3 times our current market cap. Their valuation is based on client contracts that may not be secure and a talent base that's increasingly disengaged. I said, I believe their actual value is significantly lower than what's on paper, and dropping daily. You're suggesting a hostile takeover of your former employer. His tone was curious rather than judgmental. Not hostile, strategic. W&P has valuable assets, a strong client roster, talented staff, established market presence, but its leadership has lost sight of what made it successful. With the right approach, I believe their board and significant shareholders could be persuaded. And where do you fit in this scenario? I would lead the integration and restructuring of W&P under the Hartmore umbrella, not to dismantle it, but to restore what's been lost. a culture of client partnership and strategic excellence. David was quiet for a moment. Ray, this isn't about revenge, is it, Lucas? Because corporate vendettas rarely end well. It was a fair question, one I'd asked myself repeatedly. This isn't about revenge, I said honestly. It's about recovery, about reclaiming something valuable before it's destroyed by short-term thinking. You'd be asking us to take an enormous financial risk based largely on your assessment. Yes. And you're willing to stake your reputation and future on this play? Yes. Another long pause. I'll need to discuss this with our board. Can you come to San Francisco next week? Bring whatever insights and analysis you have that support this strategy. 7 days later, I stood before Hartmore Collective's board of directors in their sleek San Francisco headquarters. For 4 hours, I presented a detailed analysis of Westbridge and Palmer's vulnerabilities, client flight risks, talent retention issues, and market position weaknesses. I outlined an acquisition strategy, integration plan, and 3-year growth projection. The questions were intense, probing, occasionally skeptical. I answered each directly, without corporate doublespeak or evasion. Finally, David Chen leaned forward. If we proceed with this strategy, what assurances do we have that you can deliver, particularly regarding client retention? I met his gaze. No absolute assurances, but I can tell you that 3 major clients have already reached out to me directly, asking where I'm going next. I haven't responded yet. The board chair, an elegant woman in her 60s, spoke up. This is an aggressive move. Mr. Reeves, some might see it as vindictive. With respect, Ms. Okafor, this is a business decision. W&P has valuable assets that are being mismanaged. Hartmore has the culture and leadership to realize their potential. This isn't about vindication. It's about value creation. 3 weeks of intense negotiation followed. Hartmore engaged with W&P's board chair, presenting the acquisition as a strategic partnership rather than a takeover. Initial resistance gave way to cautious interest as Hartmore's offer was sweetened with equity considerations for key W&P shareholders. The tipping point came when Helix Nutrition publicly announced they were terminating their relationship with Westbridge and Palmer, followed within days by 2 other significant clients. W&P's stock dropped 12% in a single trading session. The following morning, Brett Lawson called David Chen directly. Within 48 hours, the framework for an acquisition agreement was in place. Throughout this process, I remained in the background. My name appeared nowhere in the official communications. I was Hartmore's strategic consultant, nothing more. Until the day the agreement was announced, the W&P Chicago office was buzzing with nervous energy when I walked through the glass doors. Most employees had learned of the acquisition just hours earlier through an all-staff email from Brett, filled with corporate optimism about exciting synergies and expanded opportunities. I rode the elevator to the executive floor, where the leadership team was gathering for what they believed was an introductory meeting with Hartmore representatives. I'd timed my arrival precisely. As I approached the main conference room, I could see through the glass walls that the meeting was already underway. Brett stood at the head of the table, gesturing emphatically. Tara sat nearby, her expression tense. Various department heads filled the remaining seats, their body language revealing a mixture of anxiety and resignation. David Chen noticed me first, a small smile playing at the corner of his mouth. He raised his hand slightly, interrupting Brett mid-sentence. I believe the final member of our transition team has arrived, David said, nodding toward the door. All heads turned as I entered. Brett's face went slack with shock. Tara's eyes widened, her complexion suddenly pale. A few others gasped audibly. Lucas! Brett recovered quickly, professional mask sliding back into place. This is unexpected. Are you consulting for Hartmore on the transition? I set my briefcase on the table, the soft thud echoing in the suddenly silent room. Not exactly, Brett. I looked around the table, meeting the eyes of each person present. I'm not here to rejoin Westbridge and Palmer. I'm here to lead the rebuild. Brett's smile froze. I don't understand. David Chen stood. Perhaps I should clarify. As part of the acquisition agreement, Hartmore Collective will be implementing significant leadership changes. Brett Lawson is stepping down as COO, effective immediately. The room erupted in whispered exclamations and shocked glances. This is highly irregular, Brett protested, his composure cracking. The board approved an acquisition, not a coup. The board approved a comprehensive transition plan, David corrected calmly, which includes new leadership. Lucas Reeves will be overseeing the integration of W&P into Hartmore as Executive Director of Transformation. I could see the calculations running behind Brett's eyes, as assessing leverage, considering options, looking for escape routes, finding none. This is about Helix, isn't it? He said quietly. You orchestrated their departure to devalue us? I shook my head. I didn't have to orchestrate anything. Brett, you did that yourself when you decided relationships were expendable, when you valued buzzwords over building trust. Brett gathered his papers with rigid movements. I built this company into what it is today. No, I replied. Ronald Beck built this company. You inherited his legacy, then dismantled what made it special. Now we're going to rebuild it. As Brett walked stiffly toward the door, Tara half rose from her seat. Should I... Stay, Tara, I said. We have a lot to discuss about the strategic director role and your approach to client relationships. For the next 2 hours, I outlined Hartmore's vision for the integrated company. There would be changes, yes. Some positions would be eliminated, others created. But the core values would be restored: client partnership, strategic excellence, and a culture of respect. We'll be conducting culture town halls over the next 2 weeks, I explained. Every voice matters in this rebuild. Every perspective has value. One of the creative directors, a woman who joined after my departure, raised her hand. Why are you doing this? You could have just taken a new job somewhere else. It was a fair question. One I'd asked myself many times over the past month. Because Westbridge and Palmer was built on something valuable. Relationships that matter. Work that makes a difference. That's worth saving. I looked around the room, and because sometimes the best way forward is to go back to fundamentals. The transformation wasn't easy. There was resistance, resentment, and confusion, but there was also relief, renewed energy, and cautious optimism. We reopened hiring pipelines from non-traditional schools. We reinstated the mentorship program I'd started years earlier. We evaluated each client relationship, not just for revenue potential, but for partnership alignment. 3 months after the acquisition, Chloe Anderson brought Helix Nutrition back. 2 other former clients followed. When a reporter asked her why she'd returned to an agency that had so recently mishandled her account, her answer made headlines in the industry press. I'm not buying PR, I'm buying principle. I'm investing in a company that recognizes value isn't just about quarterly metrics. It's about relationships that stand the test of time. 6 months in, we were still rebuilding and still finding our way in this new hybrid culture. But the foundation was stronger than before, built on hard-earned wisdom rather than trending hashtags. On a crisp autumn evening, I met Chloe for dinner at a small restaurant near the Chicago River. The Helix campaign was exceeding projections, their customer retention rates at an all-time high. I have to admit, Chloe said as we sipped wine after dinner, when you first told me about the acquisition plan, I thought you were a little unhinged. I laughed. I probably was. It wasn't the most conventional career move, but it worked. She studied me with a thoughtful expression. Would you undo what happened? Go back to before they let you go? I considered the question carefully, watching the lights of passing boats reflect on the dark water. No, I said finally. As painful as it was, that moment of rejection forced me to see what I couldn't see before, my own value outside the company identity. The strength of the relationships I'd built. I raised my glass slightly. They took my role, not my voice, and I've never been louder. Chloe smiled, clinking her glass against mine. To speaking up. To being heard, I replied. Later that night, walking home along familiar Chicago streets, I felt a profound sense of alignment, not the strategic alignment Brett had spoken of in that fateful meeting, but something deeper, and more authentic. The alignment that comes when your actions match your values, when your work reflects your worth. They hadn't offered me coffee that day, just a severance envelope and corporate platitudes. They thought it was an ending. They couldn't have known it was just the beginning.